Most people assume that being smart makes life easier. And on the surface, that seems logical. If you're intelligent, you solve problems faster, learn quicker, see patterns others miss. Sounds like a superpower, right? But here's what nobody tells you. High intelligence comes with its own unique psychological weight, a weight that most people around you will never understand, and frankly, will never even believe exists. Today, we're diving deep into the real psychological struggles that come with a high IQ. Not the humble brags, not the stereotypes, but the actual, documented, research-backed pain points that highly intelligent people quietly carry every single day. The curse of overthinking everything. Let's start with the most obvious one, but don't dismiss it because it runs deeper than most people realize. High IQ individuals don't just think more. They think recursively. They think about their thinking. They analyze their analysis. They question whether their conclusions are even valid before they've finished forming them. While an average person makes a decision and moves on, a highly intelligent person is still sitting there, running 17 different mental simulations. What if I'm wrong? What if there's a variable I haven't considered? What if I'm being too confident? What if I'm not being confident enough? Psychologists call this meta-cognition, thinking about thinking. And while it's incredibly powerful in complex problem solving, in everyday life, it becomes a trap. You overthink conversations you had 3 years ago. You replay decisions you can't change. You lie awake at 2 a.m., not because something went wrong, but because your brain refuses to stop running scenarios. The tragedy? The smarter you are, the better you are at justifying your anxiety to yourself. Your brain literally constructs logical arguments for why you should keep worrying. Chronic boredom and the hunger that never gets full. Here's something that sounds like a luxury, but is actually a source of genuine suffering. Intelligent people get bored, deeply, profoundly bored, faster than almost anyone else. And not just bored with tasks, bored with people, bored with routines, bored with entire phases of their life. Researcher Soren Kierkegaard called this the rotation method, the way brilliant minds constantly need new stimulation, new angles, new ideas, because the old ones stop producing any mental friction. When your brain processes information faster, patterns become obvious sooner. Predictability sets in earlier. And once something is predictable, your brain essentially switches to autopilot, and you feel hollow. This leads to what psychologists call existential boredom, a deeper, more philosophical restlessness. It's not just, I'm bored at work. It's, I feel bored by life itself, and I don't know how to fix that. Many high IQ individuals jump between careers, hobbies, relationships, not because they're irresponsible, but because their mind literally consumes experiences faster than most people, and they're desperately searching for something that finally holds their attention. The loneliness of being misunderstood. This one is perhaps the most painful. There's a concept in psychology called intellectual loneliness. And it's not the same as being socially isolated. You can be surrounded by people, have friends, be in a relationship, and still feel completely, utterly alone. Why? Because connection requires resonance, and resonance requires a shared frequency. When you think at a different level, when the things that excite you, the questions that keep you up at night, the depth at which you process emotions, are fundamentally different from the people around you, you start editing yourself. You learn to dumb down your conversations. You stop sharing the ideas that actually fascinate you because the response is usually a confused look or a topic change. You develop a public version of yourself, friendly, relatable, easy to be around, and a private version that almost no one ever sees. And that gap between who you are in public and who you are in private, over time, it becomes exhausting. It becomes lonely in a way that's very hard to explain to someone who's never experienced it. Studies consistently show that highly gifted adults report higher rates of loneliness, not despite their abilities, but because of them. Paralysis by analysis, the inability to just decide. Here's the cruel irony of high intelligence. The smarter you are, the harder simple decisions become. Most people look at a menu and pick what sounds good. A highly intelligent person looks at a menu and starts considering nutritional trade-offs, value for money, which option they might regret, what they had for their last 3 meals, and whether their craving is genuine or conditioned by marketing. This isn't hypothetical. Research from Columbia University on decision fatigue shows
when people are given more information and more capacity to process it, decisions often become harder, not easier, because you see more variables, more potential outcomes, more ways things could go wrong. High IQ individuals are especially vulnerable to what's called the paradox of choice. Because their brain is capable of holding and processing more options simultaneously, they suffer more from the anxiety of choosing incorrectly. And this isn't just about small decisions. It scales up. Career choices, relationships, where to live. Highly intelligent people often remain stuck in these major life decisions for years, not because they're passive, but because they can see the flaws in every single option with painful clarity. Impostor syndrome at its most sophisticated ***. You'd think high IQ people would be overflowing with confidence. The reality is often the complete opposite. Impostor syndrome. The persistent feeling that you don't deserve your success, that you're secretly a fraud, is statistically more common among high achievers than among average performers. Why? Because intelligent people know how much they don't know. There's a psychological principle called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which most people cite to mock overconfident people. But the other side of that curve is equally important. Highly competent individuals consistently underestimate their own ability relative to others, because they are so aware of the gaps in their own knowledge. A highly intelligent person finishes a brilliant presentation and thinks, that wasn't good enough. There were so many things I could have said better. Meanwhile, someone of average competence walks out of a mediocre presentation feeling great. Intelligence creates awareness. And awareness, without the right mental framework, creates self-doubt. Constantly. Sensitivity to injustice and the weight of the world ***. This one often gets overlooked, but it's real. Research shows that highly intelligent individuals tend to have a more heightened moral and emotional sensitivity, particularly to injustice, hypocrisy, and suffering in the world. When you have a mind capable of deeply connecting dots, of understanding systemic causes, historical patterns, long-term consequences, the state of the world hits differently. You read a news story and you don't just feel sad for the immediate event. Your mind automatically extrapolates, who's responsible, why it keeps happening, what structures enable it, why nothing changes. And then you feel the full weight of that complexity. This is sometimes called Dabrowski's overexcitabilities, a theory by Polish psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski suggesting that gifted individuals experience existence more intensely across multiple dimensions. Emotionally, intellectually, psychosomatically. In plain language, the world feels louder to highly intelligent people. More unjust. More painful. More absurd. And because they can articulate it clearly, they often can't just let it go the way others do. The gift and the burden ***. If you recognize yourself in any of these, the overthinking, the loneliness, the boredom, the paralysis, the self-doubt, the sensitivity, I want you to hear this. These are not flaws. They are the shadow side of a remarkable mind. Every strength casts a shadow. The same mental architecture that allows you to solve complex problems is the same one that keeps you up at night. The same depth that makes you feel so deeply connected to ideas is the same depth that makes you feel so disconnected from people who don't share them. The solution isn't to dim your intelligence. It's to understand it. And to build a life, relationships, and mental habits that work with your mind rather than against it. Find your people, even if it takes longer. Embrace structure so
your overthinking has somewhere to land. Use your sensitivity as a compass, not a wound. And above all, stop waiting for life to feel simple, because for a mind like yours, simple was never the point. The point was always depth. And depth, for all its difficulty, is the only place where real meaning lives.